Hello there, Claire Kennedy here, and welcome back. This is the first in a short series of videos all about colour. Colour is such an evocative language. It so strongly conveys mood, and it really does have the power, to make us feel a certain way. And I think this is particularly illustrated well in film. So if you've seen, for example, Wes Anderson's Grand Budapest Hotel, with all its, different pinks and purples, and you compare that to, for example, a film like The Matrix, where the colour palette is predominantly different greens, quite sort of sickly greens. And, it really puts us in a completely different emotional place. I think there's also quite a personal element to colour as well, a personal taste element. So when we go to the shops to buy new clothes, we definitely tend to favour certain colours over others, and that comes quite naturally to us. But when it comes to our artwork and choosing colours, choosing a colour palette for a painting, that can be a bit daunting and a bit overwhelming. So where do you start? Well, I think a good place to start is here with a colour wheel. Once you've got an understanding of how a colour wheel works and a basic grasp of basic colour theory, then it really helps to be able to select a palette which is appealing, cohesive, and also a palette which will provoke a certain emotional response from the viewer. So let's have a closer look at this. This is a traditional colour wheel which you can buy in the art shop. Now, there's a lot of information on this. It looks quite complicated with all the flappy bits and sliding bits. But a lot of this we don't need at the moment. And a lot of it you probably know intuitively anyway. So ignore this middle bit at the moment and just look at the colours around the edges, or the hues, to give them their proper name. Now, at this point, we're all going to go back to primary school, where we probably remember learning that you have the primary colours. So it's worth recapping this. You have the primary colours of yellow, blue, and red. And then you can mix them together to make the secondary colours. So yellow and blue make green, blue and red make violet or purple, red and yellow make orange. And then you can go further and you can make the tertiary colours. So then that would be yellow and green, makes a kind of yellow-green. Green and blue make a kind of teal, aqua, and so on. And together they make the traditional colour wheel. Now, it has to be said at this point that this isn't the only colour wheel that you can use. Especially in more recent times, there are other slightly different colour wheels that some artists prefer. But I'm not going to go into that here, as I don't want to overcomplicate things. I'll maybe dive into that in a future video, because I do find colour theory endlessly fascinating. But today we're just going to stick with this traditional colour wheel, which was actually first created by Isaac Newton. I think it is the best tool, especially if we're getting started on the basics of colour theory. So before I flip this over, just also want to point out that half of the colours here are known as cool colours. So the sort of greens and blues, and half of them are warm colours, the yellows and reds. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but it's worth knowing that on a painting, the cooler colours tend to recede, while the warmer colours tend to come forward. So it's just worth knowing that. Also bear in mind that you can get warmer or cooler versions of each colour. For example, I've got two reds here, Naphthol red and quinacridone red. This red is veering towards the orange side. It's a warmer red, whereas the quinacridone red has got a sort of purple slant to it. So it's a cooler red. So on the colour wheel, this one would probably be here somewhere, and this one would be sort of here somewhere. So For this reason, a lot of artists like to have a warm and a cool version of all three primaries, and that gives more scope for colour mixing. So I'm going to quickly flip this over to the other side, and we still have all our colours, our hues around the edge, but this time we've got these kind of quite handy little windows here, and what they show are the tints, the tones, and the shade of a colour. A tint is just the colour plus white. A tone is the colour plus grey, so it sort of desaturates. And a shade is the colour plus black. So with red here, for example, you've got the tint. When you add white, it gives a pink colour. When you add grey, it sort of desaturates it, gives this kind of like, well, I don't know, a sort of desaturated sort of beige almost. And the shade, which is when you add black, has a more kind of a brick red tone. And of course, you'd have many, many, many in between as well. You've just got 3 examples here. There's lots of other things going on here as well, but at the moment we'll just stick there. So now we have a basic understanding of what a colour wheel looks like. How can we use it to choose colour combinations that look right together and that create the mood that we're wanting to evoke in our paintings? Well, there are simple formulas which we can follow, which we can just call colour schemes. There are several of these which are actually explained in the middle here. But today we're just going to look at the 3 main ones. And once you know them, you won't be able to look at paintings in an art gallery or museum the same way again, or watch a film for that matter, because you see these formulas everywhere. Well, I suppose they have been around for hundreds of years. The first one is the simplest. It's called monochromatic. Monochromatic colour scheme. All that is, it's taking one colour and using lots of tints and tones and shades to create a very simple, uncluttered palette. Think of that Grand Budapest Hotel film that I mentioned earlier, all those different pinks, very cohesive, but also very sort of playful and whimsical. But with a monochromatic colour scheme, the colour that you choose has got a very, a large bearing on the mood it creates as well. Because think of the paintings in Picasso's Blue period; they were mainly monochromatic blue paintings, no warmth added to them at all, and that gave them a really kind of melancholic look. But that reinforced the subject matter, which was often quite lonely, isolated figures. The second colour scheme is called analogous. And that is when artists use between 2 and 4 colours beside each other on the colour wheel. And that gives a very sort of harmonious, restful feel, no sort of jarring. If you think of Monet's water lilies, for example, with all those sort of blue, greens, blues, and violets here, his colour scheme was an analogous colour scheme, and probably sort of from here on the colour wheel. He has a very harmonious look. The third formula is complementary. This is the most interesting to me. It takes 2 colours which are the opposite sides of the colour wheel. So 2 colours which are the most different from each other that they can possibly be, like red and green, or orange and blue, yellow and purple. And it places them together, which just makes them really pop. And I'm going to talk more about complementary colours in my next video, and also how you can use them to really great effect in your paintings. Now that you know these colour schemes, I guarantee you're going to see them everywhere now. And this morning I was actually flicking through this old history of art book that I had when I was a student. To be honest, I don't think I've even opened it much since then. But I thought I'll flick through it, see if I can find 1 or 2 examples. But I mean, the examples are just jumping off the pages. They're all over the place. So I'm just going to show you a few here. Here is Cézanne. So you can see this is a very much an analogous colour scheme. In fact, you can probably, look, there it is right there, basically from here to here. Which is, you know, it's harmonious, it's quite restful, nothing's really popping or jarring, it's just quite pleasant to look at. Let's see what we've got here. Oh, this is Whistler. Whistler, quite known for monochromatic colour schemes, very sort of simple, cohesive, quite restful, basically shades of grey here. And this is, there are some little sprinkles of yellow here, but essentially this is a monochromatic colour scheme as well, using this blue-green. Lots of shades, so dark versions of it, almost black, and lots of tints and tones all over the place. But it's essentially a monochromatic, which gives this is, you know, it's restful. Let's see what we've got here. Oh yeah, this one. Actually, when I opened this book earlier today, this is the first page it opened at, and it's such a great example of a complementary colour scheme. It's by Holbein, and it's of a merchant who's, you know, commissioned a portrait of himself. So obviously he wants to look good, he wants to look wealthy, he wants his clothes to look, you know, sumptuous and expensive. Holbein would have known this, so it's no accident that he's portrayed him wearing those sort of pinky red silks and placed him in this green setting, which is a complementary colour. So it just really makes those sleeves pop, and it's the first thing that we can see. I doubt this merchant would have known much about colour. Well, maybe he would have, but I doubt it. It's quite possible he wouldn't have known anything about colour theory. But he would have seen this portrait and thought, you know, I look good, I look rich, you know, pays the commission and everybody's happy. But really, Holbein knew what he was doing with that, which is quite interesting. Here we've got Raphael. This is again a monochromatic colour scheme, all the different reds. I mean, I suppose this was to show power and pomp and all the rest of it, but all those reds also make, I don't know about you, make me feel a bit uneasy. I think there's some, I don't know the history of this painting, but there's something troubling about it. You know, you can see that in the looks on these figures. There's something going on there, and I think Raphael's use of a monochromatic with all the reds, you know, it reinforces that slight uneasiness when you're looking at this one. Here's Raphael again, but this time he's using a complementary colour scheme. So you've got the red dress, and that looks really good because he's surrounded by these greens. So it focuses us on that figure. Again, this is a painting from the 15th century, and you've got this Christ figure here, and he's portrayed him wearing these red-orange robes, and of course he's placed him in a complementary colour, so this kind of aqua bluey green, which really makes this figure stand out. But what's also interesting about this is he's put this red-orange colour, he's dotted it around in a smaller way, you know, on the roofs around here, so that, you know, he still wants us to look at the rest of his painting, he wants our eye to move around a bit, but this is where the eye really rests, because he's got this complementary colour scheme and this really stands out. And again here, I mean, this is such a good example, because this figure here, you know, you hardly look at it, you know, it practically disappears, and the dog actually almost does disappear. You know, what the artist wants us to look at here is this figure, and he's done this by having these very strong, quite jarring complementary colours. You've got the green dress on the red background, so our eye just zooms straight to this part of the painting. So it's quite interesting how artists use colour to to evoke a mood, like we were talking about earlier, but also they can use it as a device to guide our eyes to look exactly where the artist wants us to look on the painting. So there are endless examples in this book. They were just the ones that I just wanted to show you a few of them. So I hope you enjoy finding examples yourself next time you're in an art gallery or museum, and you'll see them everywhere. Yeah, hope you've enjoyed this little quick introduction to basic colour theory, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for watching.